The collapse of the country's banks in the fall of 2008 wiped out the pensions and savings of most Icelanders. Every citizen was now saddled with a debt estimated at $350,000 per person. Icelanders were furious at the greed of bankers and government cronyism that contributed to the meltdown. In early 2009, some took to the streets to express their dissatisfaction. First, they surrounded the national parliament, and protest leaders appealed to the public to come out and support them.
I sort of wasn't very optimistic that we would be able to mobilize the people. But every week, every day, you got such shocking news that completely shook the foundations of, your sense of what was moral. The immorality that was exposed to us was so shocking that people started to come together.
The Reykjavik police moved into position to protect the parliament. Inevitably, there were scuffles. Nothing like this had ever happened in Iceland, and both sides were unsure how to proceed. On January 21st, the anger focused on Icelandic Prime Minister Geir Haarde. His car was surrounded and pelted with eggs and garbage. He was shaken by the incident, especially because it came shortly after a difficult visit to his doctor.
When people were attacking my car, I had gotten the diagnosis the night before that I had cancer. So all of this in my memory is very, very vivid. I can understand why people were angry, particularly those who had lost money, who had lost their jobs. There was a crisis that nobody had really expected, of enormous proportions.
Icelandic poet and singer Hordur Torfason was the main protest leader.
I said to the people, we are all angry, but use your anger as a positive force. Don't destroy, don't use violence, don't attack people, don't go to the homes of the politicians, because that's private. We can never use anger to destroy.
Torfason asked the crowd to go home and get their pots and pans, then come down and serenade the politicians in the parliament.
Við þurfum ekki að nota alla þessa peninga.
And it was new for Icelanders, ordinary people, to come out and do something sort of illegal, like not obeying police orders and so forth. And in the end, it almost became tribal. There were so many people with pots and pans and homemade drums, and there was this beating and the fires outside the parliament. In a sense, it was sort of the unbearable lightness of being, to be there, to experience this within the nation, and to see the joy and experience the joy when we finally got what we wanted.
On January 23rd, Icelandic Prime Minister Geir Haarde addressed his countrymen on national television and announced that he was resigning due to illness.
Og velja sér nýjan formann sem leiða mun flokkinn í næstu kosningum. Takk fyrir.
His governing coalition fell apart. National elections were called. The new government in Iceland was left to clean up the incredible mess left by the bankers and politicians who preceded them. Steingrímur Sigfússon became the new finance minister.
Obviously, the international crises are hitting a lot of countries, but in Iceland it's probably more painful than almost anywhere else, because things were taking to such extremes in Iceland. This neoliberal privatization experiment that was driven forward by greed and bad practices in business had a terrible ending, and now we are paying the price. And like usually, it's not the people that cause the problem that have to tidy up afterwards.
Many Icelanders feel they are living in the ruins of a collapsed society. Every night, Reykjavik police see the symptoms, like an upswing in domestic violence. Here a woman has called for help because her estranged husband has broken into her house and grabbed her baby in a fit of drunken desperation. The police calmly talk the unemployed man into giving up without a fight. Constable Stefan Einarsson says police here are sympathetic with people who become despondent after they lose their jobs.
We're just people like everybody else. We have mortgages and car payments we have to make. So we're in the same situation as everyone else.
Protest leader Birgitta Jonsdottir was elected to the Icelandic parliament.
I feel incredibly strange, and at the same time I feel deeply honored to be trusted, to be in there. I will just carry on doing what I was elected to be sort of a bridge or a voice for ordinary people, for the grassroots movements within this building there.
As a result of the meltdown, young people in Iceland faced decades of high taxes and reduced social services to help pay off the debts run up by Icelandic banks. At this art college in Reykjavik, the students are multilingual, well-educated, and mobile. And there is a great fear that a high proportion of them will just give up on Iceland and move to other countries. Korto Jabali is one who plans to emigrate.
Most of the people I know don't want to live here forever. They all want to leave. Like everyone. I don't know one single person my age that really wants to stay in Iceland.
Icelandic protest leader Hordur Torfason has resumed his career as a performer. He realizes that many of his countrymen are demoralized and that many young people want to leave, but he is quite sure that Iceland can still have a bright future.
I think many of these people, if they go away and they look around in the world and they start revaluing, or seeing what really they will come back. I travel the world, I've seen so many things I think this society is a very good one, and we have the opportunity to build it up. And I see signs of this beginning. People are really standing together and helping each other.
In confronting the problems of a failed economy, Iceland at least has the advantage of a strong social safety net. The situation is much more difficult in what is being called the Western world's most surprising failed state, California. In the 3 months following the meltdown, there were an estimated 1 million foreclosures in the United States, sweeping many middle-class families into poverty. Tent cities began springing up across the country as the homeless desperately searched for somewhere to spend the night. This one suddenly appeared in a field in Sacramento, California, the capital of a state that was long considered America's richest. It was reminiscent of the tent cities that appeared in this area during the Great Depression of the 1930s. In those days, they were called Hoovervilles, after then U.S. President Herbert Hoover. Back then, homeless people camped along the banks of the Sacramento River at the edge of town. And again today, the homeless have pitched their tents in the exact same spot. It is a dangerous place because the river can suddenly overflow its banks and flood the area. Bill Diola says they have tried to camp in safer places in Sacramento, but were chased away.
The camping law states that if you're inside the city limits, you cannot pitch a tent for more than 24 hours, can't camp in one spot for more than 24 hours, even with written permission from the property owner.
I'm 2 months homeless. This is all new to me. These guys lead me the way.
Municipal officials in Sacramento quickly ordered the big tent cities dispersed and did everything in their power to drive the homeless out of their jurisdiction. Many were arrested or fined. The Harrelson family of Sacramento have been homeless for months. When debt overcame them, they sold their house and tried to move in with relatives, but it didn't work out. They are on bicycles now because they can't afford a car, which is sadly ironic because Francis is a retired auto worker.
I worked for General Motors for about 30 years. And I got when they came out with the early retirements, I jumped on it. Thought it was a good deal. Didn't turn out to be.
The family has spent some nights camping beside the Sacramento River, which Angelina did not enjoy.
I'm a girly girl. I don't like bugs. I don't like dirt. And it gets really cold at night. And then being dark outside and knowing that there's critters around like skunks or raccoons terrifies me.
The Harrelsons' 8-year-old son Joseph attends the Mustard Seed School in Sacramento, a school specially for children who are homeless.
We do recess and we go in and we eat breakfast there and we do a journal and DOL. And after the afternoon we do math or science, just fun stuff to do.
After the global financial collapse knocked so many families out of their houses and down below the poverty line, there are now over 1.5 million homeless children in the United States. This school is privately funded by a charity called Loaves and Fishes.
It's not uncommon when the kids first come, we have sack lunches that groups in the community have fixed for the kids. And a child will be eating her lunch and the teachers will notice that she's hiding food. And when asked, that little girl will say, well, it's for my mother. I know she's going to be hungry. And for a child to be hiding food to take care of her hungry mother is not the way things should be.
What is this? I have no idea.
There's times where he gets really frustrated at us and he'll tell us, why can't you just give us a home like other normal kids? I want my own room back. It breaks my heart when he gets frustrated like that. It really breaks my heart to have to sit there and tell him, I'm sorry.
More and more charity organizations are stepping up to offer food and clothing to the homeless, but the demand just keeps growing. Almost 2 years after the meltdown, unemployment and homelessness in California is still getting worse, not better. There are over 100,000 homeless military veterans in the United States, the greatest collection of them in the Los Angeles area. Many of them suffer from post-traumatic stress and other mental illnesses. One of them recently crawled into a dumpster in Santa Monica and burned himself alive. The LA County Jail now houses the greatest collection of mentally ill people in the country. The government here simply can't provide any other facilities or treatment for them.
Please welcome the 38th Governor of the state of California,
Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger recently announced a new range of budget cuts, which will certainly make the situation even worse. But he remains optimistic.
The power of California's innovators and entrepreneurs is still strong. We are still the shining city on the hill. I don't consider it by any means a failed state.
Many of the governor's critics say he's turning California into a wasteland that resembles his famous Terminator movies. He doesn't see it.
When I was doing movies, I enjoyed destroying everything. I mean, I loved blowing up buildings and loved destroying cars and wiping out people and all those kind of things. So by the time the landscape was there, it was just everything was burning and everything was a wreck. But now when you turn on the news, you see the same thing when they talk about the economy. But the reality of it is it's not that bad. It is bad. We did go down with the economy, but we're going to be okay in California.